Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Again, it's been a while because I have been traveling in Florida, and I made it down here to explore a couple of conferences in the blockchain space, and I have had to spend almost a couple of months. So I've been touring around, as you know, Norman, and I have Norman Traversy here with me today, and we're going to do a little update today, aren't we, Norman? How are you?
Yes, we are. Hi, Amina.
How are you
Good
doing?
to see you.
You as well. It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm swell. Thanks.
Here. So I'm here at this great little spot, Airbnb in Naples, Florida, and this house is on this little lake, and you may see an alligator or two go, behind me. It happens. So it's kind of neat. And yeah, so I've just been having a really good time down here. What have you been up to?
Spending a lot of time on the phone, doing a lot of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Still working on
what's going on. What's the update? Because people are interested and are curious. I've been really busy with a lot of my blockchain stuff down here. So, but we thought we would do this show and give a little update for everybody because we have a guest coming on the show as well, and that's part of the update. And we are waiting for Paul to join us. But you start. I think we'll just go ahead and start with what you've been doing, Norman, and this gentleman, Paul, that's about to come on the show with us, what you're doing with him as well.
Okay. When I gave my speech on Parliament Hill last July 1st, I spoke about three things: human trafficking, workplace safety insurance board, money laundering, fraud in the tens of billions. And the last one was Trudeau, SNC Lavalin, corruption, the WE scandal, and all the rest of that. I have laid criminal charges against Justin Trudeau. They've been unlawfully stayed. We're trying to reopen that. There's quite a few of us on the team now. And the latest regarding Workplace Safety Board is we are doing a charter challenge against the law, in particular the PTSD law, which states that it only applies to first responders that were diagnosed after 2016. And that's a blatant violation of the charter. So we are doing a charter challenge. My name is on it. There are names of other people across Canada, one in every province. And that's going ahead. It's been accepted by the court. We are very confident that we'll succeed because it's a charter issue. We were originally going to do a class action suit, but those can take years. But apparently a charter challenge has to be looked at right away, as soon as possible, because you can't have an unlawful law in the books. So we're going ahead with that.
Can you explain a little bit about the challenge, the charter challenge, what exactly that means?
It means that the law that was passed regarding PTSD and first responders only applies to people that were diagnosed after 2016. Yeah, I made a formal complaint about workplace violence at Mississauga City Hall. I complained in writing to the city manager. And as a result, I was suspended without pay for 14 months. When I finally was allowed to come back to work, they refused to give me a copy of the report that was made about workplace violence. And I was ushered to a cubicle with a shower curtain across it. And it had this sign, professionally made: Norman Traversy, caged animal.
Wow, it's horrible. How demeaning.
Yeah, I was then told to do nothing and just sit in that cubicle. I complained to my union, and the president, Greg Lang, stated, "What do you care? You're getting paid every 2 weeks." Eventually, the city's doctor because my PTSD was getting much worse. The city's doctor instructed me to stay home until they had a proper accommodation for me, which I did. And then the city fired me. The union's done nothing to back me up. WSIB has done nothing to back me up. And that's why I ended up on Parliament Hill, given the speech I gave.
Part of the reason, for sure. And what a horrible thing you had to go through, considering what you've given to your community as well, and all other firemen that have to go through and endure such an experience, because you're not the only one. You're not alone in this. Now we have Paul waiting in the waiting room, and I want to bring him in. Can you just mention who this person is that you've connected with that has to do in regards to your WSIB case?
Paul Taylor, also an injured worker, is a paralegal, and he's representing me and all the other injured workers across Canada. He has filed a $48 billion charter challenge against Workplace Safety Insurance Board, and he's smart as a whip.
Okay, well, let's bring him in so we can judge for ourselves how smart he is. Hey, Paul, welcome. We are live and recording. So we're not live, but we are recording. So
okay. Thank God.
And did an introduction with Norman and what he's doing, and bringing his followers up to speed as to what's going on in this present world and his connection and collaboration with you. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me, Amina.
Pleasure. Great to have you here. So let's just dive right into this, because there's a lot to cover. And we would just want to do a little recap as to what you and Norman have been working on and where you're at with the case, with the charter challenge, that is. So Norman's already described what a charter challenge is, and perhaps you can let us know what exactly you're doing to help Norman with his charter challenge. And of course you have one as well. We'll talk about that after. I want to bring that up too. And if you can describe a little bit about what you're doing with Norman and this charter challenge, and also what you feel the probabilities are of this succeeding.
No, well, I can start with probability, and I'll be honest with you that.
Please do.
And I reference scholarly studies, research studies from universities. For example, University of Windsor Law School conducted a study in 2013 about self-represented litigants within the court system. And they found that less than 3%, 3 or 4% were successful in Canada's courts. So the success rate of just being self-represented is very negligible. I then did a cursory review of case law. That's what they did, is they reviewed all case law involving self-represented litigants. I then sort of added on the criteria of being an injured worker and self-represented, and learned that the success rate is 0. So in other words, you have no chance being self-represented, which is very sad, because the justice system is supposed to be about fairness. That's the representation of in Canada, we don't use the gavel. I've never seen a judge anywhere in Canada do that. I think it's because, in theory, we have more respect for our judges, for our judiciary, for our justice system. And more importantly, I think the scales of justice are more representative of what it means. And that means to basically be fair, no matter what it is: criminal law, family law, constitutional law. But it almost seems like, to me, the scales are tilted, as they say. And it's very disturbing in that way. That's why I am myself, with my experience, because I'd already brought 2 separate challenges to the Supreme Court of Canada, applications they call it, and was unsuccessful in both. Through my study and experience, I learned the first one, the reason why, is because the Supreme Court is unique of any other court in that when they look at an appeal, they don't necessarily look at to see if it's right or wrong, but more along the lines of, is it in the public's interest to deal with it? And if they've dealt with it before. In my case, they had dealt with it before. So that's why it was they weren't interested in it. In Norman's case, I'm not going to lie that in his story, and every time I talk to him, I'm utterly and thoroughly disgusted with his case.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the people at the board, at the tribunal, even in the justice system, and I think to myself, there is a firefighter who, in my view, with all due respect to all injured workers, we should put a little bit above most. Not that I'm taking anything away from any other injured worker. And the reason why is because they run into fire, they head to danger while others are running away.
Mm-hmm.
It's less of an accident and more of a reality that they get injured.
Mm-hmm.
And in response for their efforts, we basically go, who cares? And that is very disturbing. Like, to me, an injury is an injury. It doesn't matter if it's psychological. It doesn't matter if it's PTSD. It doesn't matter if it's this year or last year or whenever. And that, in general, is Norman's problem, is that they're literally nitpicking stuff when they should be taking a step back and going, how can we help you? I don't think if you ask Norman, nobody in the board or tribunal or at his employers have actually used those words. How can we help you? You know, I think it almost seems to them it's the reverse. How can we help ourselves?
Right.
You know, and I think that's the biggest problem, is the attitude and the stigma of injured workers. And Norman is the classic case, caged animal. I'm sure you've seen that sign.
Mm-hmm.
That is the epitome of stigma. Right?
Oh, it's horrible. It's demeaning. It's dehumanizing him, you know.
Right.
Honestly.
And it's fortunate because he has the physical evidence. I mean, I've talked to many women that have been humiliated just because they're a woman in the workplace, to say women are weaker than men and you shouldn't be here and that's why you got hurt, which is a load of garbage. Or men.
Well, they can't say that's a joke either, because Norman has been and still does, and I can attest to that, suffers from PTSD, and it's quite severe too at times. So I'm sure at that time it was more severe than now, but still, you know, you wouldn't just play jokes with somebody in those conditions.
Well, the stigma part of it really angers me, because this is something that a lot of injured workers don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
And that we actually call ourselves injured workers, but in reality, and ironically and really insultingly, the board actually now calls us persons with disabilities. And I want to explain the distinction between it. Is that first, you're a person with an injury.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, there's a clear distinction, because a person with an injury, their injury is ever changing. It's dynamic. You could be getting better, you could be getting worse. Whereas with a person with a disability, it's generally static, meaning you know what your limits are, you know what you can do. And the board and the government across Canada, and believe it or not, around the world, I've talked to injured workers and I've heard from injured workers in Australia, and they're going through the same thing, and in the US, is that they've literally manipulated the law on persons with disabilities to their advantage by saying, well, your employer can find suitable work for you, so that way we don't have to pay you any benefits. And that is a complete perversion of the law and our rights. But flipping it the other way and saying, okay, well, you think it's okay as a coworker or a supervisor or a manager to make fun of somebody, but what you don't realize is it's actually a violation of their human rights and their charter rights.
Mm-hmm.
So if a coworker is making fun of another worker, that company, the employer, is legally liable. And I'll tell you something, that the Human Rights Tribunal now in Ontario and in BC and right across Canada, they're awarding substantial damage awards against employers for allowing such conduct, whether it be for disability, gender identification, or whatever. Just because you can't wrap your head around their issues doesn't mean to say you can mock and make fun of them. And I think that's Norman's, without a doubt, that's one of his biggest issues, is the lack of recognition, and most importantly, the lack of respect.
Norman, do you want to add to any of this?
Yeah, everything Paul said is absolutely correct. Not only was it mocking me, it was actually trying to injure me, because you know, people commit suicide over less. And the shower curtain was disgusting. Another injured worker who had a permanent back injury from fighting fires was working in the same room as me, his supervisor threw him over boxes, jumped on him, and started to choke him.
Wow.
Now, you know what was done? Nothing. Nothing was done. They hid it. The union covered it up. Greg Lang, the president of the union, knew all about it, helped cover it up. The man retired 2.5 years early because he didn't feel safe at work. I've got copies of the letters. I can provide proof, and you can post them if you like, Amina. But that is the environment. A woman I worked with was being harassed sexually and other ways. She filed a formal complaint. She was on the fire department, and they didn't even do an investigation. She named me as a witness, and I told her I'd say whatever I witnessed, and they never spoke to me. They never investigated. They covered the whole thing up, and that went on and on and on. The city of Mississauga is a toxic workplace, and they've destroyed God knows how many lives.
Well, the city of Mississauga, and also, other courtrooms, as with your other court, the main prosecution of this whole case that you've taken on, Norman, it's just been always that sort of same type of reaction or non-reaction from the courts. So it's, you wonder what is happening. Like, what do you see, Paul? Like, with everything happening, there's a great reset, there's things shutting down because of COVID. I mean, what can you see from this?
Well, it's interesting because I can explain the reason why it's happened. And the reason why is because globally, everybody knows about globalization. And then there's something called neoliberalism, which is the shift in belief of survival of the fittest, business first, money over people. Or as I like to call it, scholars call it, economists call it neoliberalism, but I like to call it neo-fascism, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
But from that, I would say over the last 5 or 10 years, there's been a bit of a reckoning where business and government is starting to slowly recognize that we went too far. And the problem is the cost is just astronomical. Norm has been destroyed as a person. And it's sad because Norm talks about his stories about all the other co-workers in the fire department. And I've actually talked to many injured workers, first responders, 911 operators, and other not regular, but non-first responder injured workers who have gone through virtually identical situations. And I think it's because I've heard of so many stories that personally it's angered me. That when you look at an individual, the Constitution and our charter in Canada says we have rights. But when you go to the courts or when you go to the board, they're literally laughing at us. And that's why I've been trying over the past month, since April 28th, to file my national charter claim. And basically what it is I'm not sure if Norman explained the logistics of it, is under Section 24 of the Charter gives Canadians the power to get justice or remedy. 24.2 is the most common one that everybody hears about, having evidence in a criminal trial excluded. But 24.1, a lot of people aren't familiar with that. There's 2 parts to that. One is where a law will be declared of no force in effect. A common one was the abortion law with Morgentaler, R.V. Morgentaler. Another example, a better one, is where if the government has harmed you and infringed your charter rights, you can go to court and ask for damages to be awarded. So that's exactly what I'm doing. And with Norm and literally hundreds of other injured workers across Canada, I've been compiling this charter claim and confirmed that there is injured workers right across Canada in every province and every territory, that they're all experiencing the exact same things. And that's why I filed the charter claim. I initially did it on April 28th in a Hamilton court, but when I first did it, they said I didn't do it correctly because I had emailed it to them. And I did that because I thought their portal system wouldn't accept fee waivers. Then they emailed me back and said, no, just use the portal, you can do that. And I said, okay. So then I did exactly as they asked. I provided my income tax returns and the fee waiver, and I'm well below the threshold for qualifying. And I did it exactly as they asked. Sure enough, it was rejected. And they said, well, it's because we want your 2020 tax return, not your 2019. And you have another person living with you. So I emailed them right away back and I said, look, I said, my tax return is 2019. That's the latest year. 2020 isn't done like most people. And by the way, Revenue Canada says I don't have to file it until June 15th because I'm self-employed. And trust me, gross income, net income is way below the $46,000 threshold right now. Regardless, the second person that's living with me is my daughter, and she's not working. So all those issues are resolved. I said I'll provide a full birth certificate confirming that. No response, and that was 3 weeks ago. So then today, right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm reformatting the claim, and I'm going to file it in Guelph because I find they're a little bit more receptive to me because they personally know me. They're very friendly. They're great people there. And also I still have a relationship in Guelph because I used to live in Guelph for years. So now I'm going to refile in Guelph and hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be accepted. Because I'm not looking for damages so much for myself, is that I'm just infuriated by the way human beings are treating other human beings. And not to get too far off topic, but look at the 215 children found in BC.
Yeah.
And I know everybody says children, to me, they're babies. And the other question I like to raise is, are we ever going to find out any real justice? Are people going to be held accountable for what happened? And sadly, when you look at injured workers, they will look at you and say, no. And that's very sad with our whole system of justice, as it were.
It's very sad because it's almost becoming like you're desensitized to it. You hear it, and then what do? It's an automatic non-response. It's like you're conditioned that that's what you do.
Exactly.
You get upset, you talk about it, and then that's it. And this is a typical thing in Canada, right? So like, Norman and I've been talking a lot about just in general what's going on in our country and around the world. And I keep saying, that's great. You can go to protest, you can protest all you want, but I think we are now connected, and there's enough of us connected in the country. But then what do you do next? Like, we should be standing up to this and saying, no, this is what we need to be doing. So, I know Chris Sky had talks lots about that. I had him on my show. They took my video down with him, and now they're deeming him to be some sort of killer and, making accusations that I don't know. I've never heard him make any kind of accusations, as what I'm hearing in the Ottawa Sun and places like that. So, what is going on here? If we do try to stand up, people seem to be afraid, but everyone just needs to do that in a peaceful way. Peace is peaceful. I say that, but you have to be strong about it. You have to do it. You actually have to stand up to the system or to any wrongdoing within a system. It's not to stand up to the system. There's good people, and there are things in the system that do work for us, but it's to stand up to the wrongdoers in it and say, no, that's just not okay. So we have to take action. And I just want to say that.
And that's amazing what you said. It's so true. And it's kind of funny in a way, because I'm actually going to try and help, because I'm a licensed paralegal as well. I can represent people in criminal court, but up to charges of 6 months in jail, that's it, or what they call a summary conviction. So an injured worker reached out to me, and so it's not funny, but it is funny because it's so ridiculous. And he's actually being charged under the Terrorism Act because he wrote a letter to Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford. And okay, he did cross the line in my view, but they should have saw who it was coming from and just went, I understand his position.
Right.
It's sad because it's how the media reports stories. They over sensationalize. A good example was in Edmonton, Alberta. Patrick Clayton, an injured worker, he snapped. He just literally snapped. He went into the WCB in Edmonton and he held them hostage. It resolved, thank God, peacefully. And he did jail time and that. And I've talked to him. He's an amazing guy. I can tell, I understand this. I don't agree with what he did, but I understand.
Right.
Well, I just last year or 2016, I can't remember when it was. It was literally, I think it was a year after he had done that. An injured worker again snapped, poured gasoline all over himself and set him on fire and tried to walk into the building. And of course, security stopped him, put the fire out, and he was okay, apparently, like, burns and that. But what really shocked and disgusted me about the media was that the only thing they cared about was that the security measures at the WCB were higher now, that he couldn't have done any harm. That's all they talked about. Nobody once said, why would he do this to himself?
Exactly.
Why would he try and hurt other people? And I think that's something where our media seems to be today. The mainstream media seems to be lacking in my view, journalistic integrity. They don't dig deep enough into the story.
I don't think they dig deep, period. I think they're given a narrative and they just read it.
Well, yeah, and then you have the debate about that, for example, who's the media now? Toronto Star owns all the local newspapers. Rogers and Bell owns all the radio and TV stations. So that's it. There's three companies, and it kind of is disturbing in a way when you think about it.
And they're subsidized by the federal government.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, CBC, yeah.
That's fascism, right? When the government is involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that's disturbing in a way, because the media used to be our voice. But thankfully, we have people like you and many others that are starting to make blaze their own path to truth and do your own stories. And no disrespect to you, you might not get it always right. You might not do it, but you're doing better, in my view, than the mainstream media, who are making all those advertising dollars.
Sure, agreed. You know, I don't know it all, and I don't have it all, and I may not have every guest that does. So, but at least there's an open forum. There is an opportunity for freedom of speech and expression, and that's what this country should be, and you know what we thought was all about. So, and that's important. Like that's important to be able to discuss and communicate and create together. You know, you have to have that kind of forum. So yeah, I appreciate that, and anyone out there, you know, really fighting the battle, trying to stay on as a show. And I haven't done a show in a little while. As I was saying, I got out of Canada. Everyone keeps saying, how did you get out of Canada? Down here in Florida. And I'm like, I just left. You know, you can leave and you can.
Oh, that's because you said you were an essential business, and they went, oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, you can do that, but I didn't. I mean, I did say I was going to a conference. I am here for a conference, and it is business for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, within reason, you can get around and get back in the country. And I'm doing a negative test to get back in, and I'm going to quarantine for 2 weeks. But I don't plan to use the government hotels because I don't have to. So
well, they're actually talking about getting rid of them because there's so many problems. The cost is astronomical, and there's issues with, you don't need to, like, people are literally flying to Buffalo, getting a cab across, and then walking across the border.
Exactly.
And it's hilarious because I'm on the fence about everything. Like, from a ethical perspective, quarantine yourself, let people know, wear your mask, get your vaccine, do all the right stuff, fine. If you don't agree with that, I still respect that, because we're supposed to be all individuals and we have our own beliefs, and we should never force our beliefs on others. So if I believe people should get a vaccine, I will never force you to get one. And I think that's where Canadians, quite honestly, have literally lost their mind.
Yes.
You know?
Agreed. And yeah, I support what you just said. So let's continue here. We have a few more minutes. How do you want to wrap this up about the challenge and the charter and where it's going, and what you can expect, I guess, out of this? Hopefully, realistically.
Yeah, no, realistically, honestly, I'm not going to lie. And I tell injured workers every day, I mean, I hope I give you a little bit of hope, but at the same time, I'm not going to lie to you that I am very skeptical that the court will take this seriously at all, because they've yet to at all. But they're very and I'm not bragging at all. Please don't think that I do my very best, and I research in great length the law and legal principle. And sometimes I actually impress the judges, which is important. But at the same time, at the end of the day, they have the greatest respect for me, and they're all nice to me, but they still dismiss my claim. And I'm like, well, how is that respect? You know what I mean? Like, if you're not taking me seriously, that's not real respect. So I really hope and pray it will. Sorry,
you do have to try, and that's what you and Norman are both doing, and that's really important that you do, and you keep trying and you keep moving forward. And we, like Norman, we've never given up since last year. We keep trying this angle, that angle, and doing whatever, you know, is possible with whoever's willing to work with us, you know. And
he's been fighting since the day he got hurt. I can tell because I've reviewed his file, and without, you know, revealing too much,
yeah,
I can say that, and it's, please don't take this the wrong way, Norman. It's kind of funny because he's a broken person, he's a broken man, and yet still he's getting up broken, and he's fighting a corrupt,
yes,
massive bureaucratic system. It's
absolutely.
just unbelievable.
Yeah,
I think, what, 6 concussions?
Yeah.
And 14 injuries, several chemical exposures, and you treated me like dirt. But that was just, that's par for the course for those people.
Yeah.
John McDougall, the fire chief, lied about me to WSIB. I rescued someone on my way to work, and he said, we don't expect our people to do rescues off duty. Really? I swore an oath, a firefighter's oath, to help my fellow man in time of need. And they just threw me under the bus, but I'm not the only one.
No, you're not. That's, there's so many, and it's just not okay. So I really pray for all of you and pray for your case. And I say pray because I think we're in the times of great prayers, and I really am not holding back and saying that. I think it's important. It is for me anyway. So I do pray for all of you, and it's you know, a journey that you're
the way Norman was talking about, the fire chief said we don't cover people, and I just want to show you that book. That's a legal textbook, and it's called Canadian Law of First Responders Liability. So when his employer says he didn't have to render aid, with all due respect, and I don't mean to be offensive, but they're full of shit.
mm-hmm.
Norman legally had an obligation to, and if he didn't, he could have been sued.
Mm-hmm.
And I've skimmed through it, and there's oodles of case law
Mm-hmm.
where first responders just chose not to. So
Well,
he has to, because of his position, by virtue, he is working.
well, you know, let's reconvene down in the future, hopefully near future, and let's see if anything has come of this or what steps to follow, and we can let the followers know just the challenge, you know, that it is ahead of all of us in this. But certainly we'll never give up and keep moving forward.
I will never give up, ever.
Yeah, so that's what we, you know, I think we'll do that. And
no, and like I said to the WSIB lawyer once, and I think he got a little bit offended, and I said, I'm not going to give up. You're going to have to kill me to stop me, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I think most that are determined fighters that have that fight in them, like Norman, that's going to make the difference. Because I mean, I don't criticize or blame injured workers that don't fight, because they've literally had the fight beat out of them by the system and by their injuries. But the ones that do, I call them heroes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. So anything you want to conclude here, Norman, as we close this down?
Yeah, this whole WSIB fraud is a multi-billion-dollar affinity fraud. Look up affinity fraud. That's when you force someone to pay for a service that you don't provide. And that's what they're doing. They're laundering the money through British Columbia onto the American stock market. And they're making tens of billions with this scam. And I've exposed it to the FBI and the RCMP. They're both aware of it. And I, unlike Paul, I'm sure we're going to succeed. We are going to succeed.
Okay. Well, let's go with that.
I just want to add that, Norman, you might have a point there, because in reviewing the WSIB annual reports, a few years ago, they showed a surplus of 36 billion. And for some reason, that's down to 26 billion. But there was no explanation for it. And that raises huge question, and should raise huge alarm bells with the legislature and with everyone. But for some reason, it's nice and quiet, you know, and that's a huge issue. But if I could plug one thing, is if People are interested to learn more about the fight with injured workers. I have a website called fightwcb.org, and I offer free information, no advertising or nothing. And any assistance I can give to injured workers, I will, because I'm one myself. So I know about this much, what it's like to go through a very corrupt system, like Norman said.
Okay,
Thank
great. And send me those links. I'll have them down below in the description of the video.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Amina, for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, you're quite welcome. You're both doing great work here. And, you know, it's so good to get this out there to everybody so you have the right support. And please send the right energy towards all of this, everybody. You know, prayers are welcome, and, you know, and everything that we are faced with here in our country and the world. So thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you both.
Thank you. God bless you both.
God bless you too, Norman.
Yes. God bless
And you,
everyone.
Amina.
God bless. Thank you.
Bye-bye.